For ages, the story we've been told about how birds learn to fly goes one of two ways. Either they were gliding from trees or they were scrambling up hills. But what if the whole story is wrong? What if flight wasn't born in the air at all? What if it was forged on the ground in the chaos and violence of a prehistoric fight for survival? Well, today we're diving into a wild new theory that recasts the wing not as a tool for escape, but as a weapon.
But to even get there, we've got to tackle the biggest, most nagging question in the whole story of avian evolution. It's a classic, and for decades, it's had paleontologists stumped. Seriously, what good is half a wing? You see, here's the deal with evolution. For a trait to stick around, it has to be useful right now, at every single tiny step. And a small feathered arm, a proto-wing, well, it's way too weak to get you off the ground, and it's probably not that great for gliding either. So what on earth was the point? Why would nature pour all this energy into creating what looks like a totally useless appendage? And that right there is the half-wing paradox. It's the huge hurdle that the traditional theories of flight have always had trouble clearing. Because while they're not bad ideas, they don't really nail the origin of the most important part, that powerful, explosive flapping motion we call the flight stroke. So for a long time, there were two main camps. First, you've got the trees down idea, where proto-birds were basically just glorified gliders jumping from branches. But that doesn't really explain where the power for flapping came from. Then you have ground up, which includes this really cool model called wing-assisted incline running, WARE for short, where flapping helped dinosaurs run up steep hills. Super interesting. But again, it doesn't quite tell us why those first stubby little wings would have been useful in the first place. We're missing a piece of the puzzle. And believe it or not, the clue that cracks this case wide open doesn't come from some dusty fossil dig. It comes from, of all places, a modern barnyard. We're talking about a fighting rooster. Just watch a rooster when it gets into a scrap. It pulls off this wild move called a jump and strike. It leaps straight up, flaps its wings like crazy, and smashes its feet into its rival. Now here is the absolute key. That flapping has nothing to do with flying. The rooster is using its wings to stay stable in midair, to aim its feet, and to put more force into its attack. It's using its wings for combat. So that got scientists thinking, what if this isn't just a rooster thing? What if we're looking at a ghost of a behavior from millions of years ago? What if this is exactly how feathered dinosaurs like Velociraptor first started using their wings? This brings us to a whole new way of looking at the raptor's true weapon. This whole combat idea is backed up by some really incredible biomechanics research from Denver Fowler and his team. They came up with a model they call raptor prey restraint, or RPR. And let me tell you, it completely changes the way we think about how dinosaurs like Deinonychus actually hunted. Okay, forget everything you saw in the movies. The old idea was that the giant sickle claw was for slashing, right? A quick hit and run. But the RPR theory says no way. Based on modern birds of prey, it suggests that claw was used more like a grappling hook. The raptor would leap onto prey, often much bigger than itself, and use that killer claw to anchor itself and pin the animal down. Which, of course, brings up a pretty big problem. Okay, so picture this. You're 100 pounds maybe, and you've just leaped onto the back of this thrashing, panicked animal that's 5 times your size. How in the world do you stay on? You're gonna get thrown off in seconds. You need some serious stability. You need to be heavier. And this, right here, is where that dinky little proto-wing goes from being a useless appendage to the star of the whole show. This is the big aha moment, getting that stability through flapping. Because the whole point of flapping, in this fight for your life, wasn't about generating lift. It had nothing to do with getting the dinosaur up into the air. It was about pushing down. By flapping its wings like mad, the raptor created aerodynamic downforce. It was basically acting like the spoiler on a race car, generating this stability flapping that glued the predator onto its prey. And just like that, the half-wing isn't useless anymore. It's an absolutely essential piece of hunting gear. And here's where it gets even cooler. This idea doesn't just explain the wing, it suddenly makes sense of a whole bunch of other weird anatomical features that paleontologists have been scratching their heads about for years. It paints a perfect picture of the anatomy of a killer.
It's like this perfect evolutionary domino effect. Those giant pectoral muscles you need for flight, well, they first evolved to create that powerful stabilizing downforce during a hunt. And you know that special folding wrist bone that lets birds tuck their wings in so neatly? It probably evolved to keep long feathers from getting bent and snapped off during a violent ground brawl. Suddenly, there's this intense pressure for bigger, stronger feathers, because more feather surface means more downforce, more stability, and a better dinner. There was finally a reason to have a bigger wing, long before anyone ever thought about flying.
So when you put it all together, what are we looking at? It means the whole journey into the sky might have been a complete accident. The very first flyers were accidental aviators.
There's a fantastic word for this in evolution: exaptation. It's when a feature that evolves for one job gets co-opted for a totally different one later on. And the birdwing might just be the most amazing example of this in the history of life. These dinosaurs were doing flight training every single time they hunted, building the muscles and the anatomy without having the slightest clue what they were working towards.
So does this new combat-first idea just toss all the old theories out the window? Not at all. In fact, the RPR model actually works with them. It's possible that predation was the main driver for that powerful downstroke, while other behaviors, like that wing-assisted incline running, might have helped refine the upstroke. It just shows that evolution almost never takes a single, simple path.
And it all really boils down to this one mind-bending idea. We don't have birds filling our skies today because their ancestors dreamed of soaring among the clouds. We have them because their ancestors were stone-cold killers, masters of dominating their prey on the ground. The beautiful freedom of flight was just an accidental byproduct of the brutal, prehistoric drive to win the fight.
It's an incredible shift in how we see things. And it really forces you to look at the whole evolutionary story in a brand new light. I mean, it makes you wonder, what else are we looking at backwards? What other amazing things in nature started out not as tools for living, but as weapons of war?